Well, to discuss this, I'm joined from Nairobi by Joseph Ekhuya Simekha. He's a member of Raila Odinga's National Super Alliance Party, or NASA. Thanks so much for joining us, Joseph. So there was this...
It's my pleasure, thank you, yes.
...alternative swearing in, and your leader calls himself the people's president, but in reality he's not. Isn't he being a bit reckless right now with the political future of Kenya?
He didn't call himself, that's erroneous, people to keep saying that he called himself or that he swore himself in. Suddenly he did not call himself. It is the people who recognize him because they elected him. So you cannot purport to call yourself a people's president. It's people who can confer that honor to you.
But he didn't elect...
So we cannot talk about recklessness. Yes,
no,
go ahead.
But they didn't elect him. You didn't compete in that second round. You didn't compete in that second round. And
they did elect him. They did elect him. The second round you're talking about, is absolutely an election that is completely disputed, which we do not recognize as a legitimate election.
So, if you agreed that there was a second election and you trusted the Supreme Court enough for their recommendations to hold a second election, what I'm saying now is if you believe this man's your president, why not compete, win it, and then you can call him the president, and then you can say, this is truly the people's president?
We do not agree and do not recognize that there was any second election. You will remember very well, I suppose, if you follow Kenyan politics, that there was a change of the law and the rules midstream, in the middle of an election process. So when that happens, and when you get intelligence that what happened on the 8th of August is going to happen again, and even in a worse way, it's absolutely useless to purport to participate in any such flawed process. Hence the withdrawal and the demand that we must secure the process first before anyone who wants to compete in that process participates.
Okay, so certainly. But what you're doing doesn't seem to be wanting to secure the process. What you're doing is saying, well, never mind this election thing then. We'll just be the winners, and Kenyatta's fans can say he's the winner, and the country's split in two. How is that a democracy?
You are mixing the time frames. We insisted on securing the process before the repeat election. By the way, we agreed to a repeat election. We were totally happy with the decision of the Supreme Court and agreed to a repeat election until the other side began to change the rules in Parliament, intimidate the judiciary, and begin to put in place a process to rig the way they done on the 8th of August.
His deputy, Kalonzo Musyoka, was not at the event. What does that suggest? That while you might be on side with Odinga, maybe he's not? Maybe he doesn't agree with this swearing in?
He doesn't have to agree. He has given his reasons, though, why he wasn't there. He alleges that he was held by the police. We do not know that. We don't have the facts yet. We are waiting for the facts to come in. But nevertheless, whether he was held or not, whether he voluntarily chose to stay away, will not change the resolve of the Kenyan people that what we need is a legitimate process. Okay. So, revolutions and processes of reform always have a way of defining and separating leaders from opportunists. So time will tell whether what he's saying is true or not.
Okay, so let's bring in David Murathe now. He's the vice chairman of the ruling Jubilee Party. It's great to have you on the program for the position that comes from the ruling party and the alternate view. What we've been hearing is a passionate response from Joseph Simekha saying, listen, there wasn't a fair process. We don't recognize it. We want a fair process down the line, but for the moment, our true leader is Raila Odinga. Tell me why you disagree with that.
Simekha is living Alice in Wonderland, because there was an election on the 26th of August. They did not participate in that election. The August 8th election was annulled, null and voided for the presidential. So they cannot keep talking about the August 8th election. The election that will go down...
You mean October 26th, just to be clear.
October 26th.
Yes.
Yes, that's the election that will go down in history as the election that was upheld by the Supreme Court. And that is the election they boycotted. They went to court to nullify the August 8th election. When it was decided by the Supreme Court, do an election within 60 days, they boycotted. That was a court order. They were actually in contempt of court by failing to appear on the 26th of October.
Mr. Murathe, can I ask you why, if
Number
they
two,
are not... just a second, if you'll allow me to come in here, because I want to get a bit of a debate between the two of you here. If they're not that much of a threat and they're living in Alice in Wonderland, as you say, David, why did the state clamp down on the media? It wasn't just state media, but it was also privately owned media that was barred from actually covering the swearing in. If Kenya is a free democracy and Uhuru Kenyatta was democratically elected in October, why do you fear them so much that you're actually blacking them out when it comes to their alternative events?
the media is up and running. The national broadcaster is running. Media Max is running. There was a conspiracy between the NTV and Citizen TV. They were in cahoots with the NASA people. And if you want to remember the issues that brought about genocide in Rwanda, it was because of irresponsible media. So when we think that the media is being used to excite and to incite the population, government has a responsibility to maintain law and order. Okay. Now, when you don't give these people airtime, the country is calm.
Okay,
but
so let me ask Joseph Simekha.
Live broadcast.
Okay, you made the point well. Yeah. So let me ask Joseph Simekha.
Yeah?
Joseph Simekha, are you inciting violence by your events and by what you're saying, by refusing to accept the legitimate president of Kenya, and that's why they have to shut you down?
That is just a fiction of Murathe's imagination and his colleagues in Jubilee. When he talks about the media running, and actually I'm happy he names Media Max and the national broadcaster. Media Max is owned by the Kenyatta family, so that's why it's running. The national broadcaster, they are, because they are holding hostage in institutions of state, that's why it is still running. But we have laws that regulate the media in Kenya. If you have any reason to believe that any media house is going to break the law or is breaking the law, you must resort to law to limit its freedoms. And our constitution says the only way you can limit any right of freedom is through written legislation, not presidential fiat, not arbitrarily. So I disagree completely, and they are doing this because you put it very well. They are totally afraid. They're scared of us. That's why they are doing this. They're scared of us telling the truth.
David Murathe, are you afraid of them?
We are not afraid of these people. Let me tell you, these guys, by the way, that swearing in was a non-event. It was just like any other rally which they've been holding in the streets. When you talk about swearing in the people's president, remember, Raila was not sworn in as a president of the Republic of Kenya. He was sworn in as a people's president in funny assemblies. When you talk about swearing in a president, you're talking about the instruments of power. After they swore Raila in, he went home to his wife. The other people went home to their jobs. What kind of a president? In fact, we chose to ignore and not even to engage them. After all, you cannot be afraid of people who have no instruments of power. How?
Well, they want power. Let me ask you then, Joseph, what's the next step? So you had your event. It was heavy on symbolism, but as David says, short on substance, because Odinga went home to his family and everybody else went home as if they attended a rally. So you want power. Tell me what's your next step after the swearing in?
But first of all, you must hold him accountable. You don't let him get away with this. He does acknowledge now. He changes. First of all, he says we wanted to incite people to violence, like Rwanda. Then suddenly he changes and says it was a non-event. It was nothing. Why are you afraid of a non-event? How does a non-event incite people? So you don't let him get away with that. You hold him accountable for that.
Well, that's why we have a debate.
You can see how they keep shifting their position.
Okay, so fair enough. You made a good point.
Thank you. But let me shift to the question you asked.
Wait, hold on for a second. David, respond to that. On the one hand, they're going to create Rwanda and genocide. That's why you have to shut them down. On the other hand, it's a non-event. How do you square the contradiction? Fair point from Joseph. You can address that, David.
There is absolutely no contradiction. The reason it was non-event is because they did not achieve their objective. The reason they did not achieve their objective is because, number one, we withdrew the police, and they wanted a confrontation with the police, and we made sure there was going to be no riots, there was no confrontation. That is what made it a non-event. If it had been broadcast widely, most of the speakers would have used very insightful language, which would probably have even asked the crowds to start marching to State House, and they would probably get shot. And this is the kind of thing they wanted. So we deflated them. We refused to fall into their trap.
But that isn't...
There's no contradiction.
That isn't very encouraging, is it? If crowds are marching to State House, that the expectation is that they might get shot? You control the power.
Oh, yes. There must be crowd control issues and rules, eh? You cannot allow impunity. You cannot allow them to get away as if there's no government in this country.
Yeah,
you cannot
help me understand
allow
this, sir.
Chaos.
But help me understand this. If you're marching as a crowd, if you're marching as a crowd to State House, expressing your opinion, you should expect to be shot dead?
That's exactly what he says.
I am saying that the riot... No. The riot police make sure nobody goes anywhere near State House. State House is a protected security area. And if they want to try and overwhelm the police are at liberty to deal with them.
Okay, Joseph Simekha, I know you're not satisfied with that. Let me fold in your response to that with my earlier question. What's your next step? What are you going to do next?
Very well. Let me just quickly, I'm glad that Murathe says what he's saying, that if you attempt to protest in this country peacefully and in accordance with the Constitution, their response is to shoot you dead. He just confirmed that. I'm glad he confirms that on television. But listen, if we had wanted to protest, even in the presence of the threat of being shot dead, we would still have protested. That was not part of our plan. We know that they withdrew the police because they had brought 5,000 extra police from around Nairobi. They withdrew after getting intelligence the previous night that those police officers, most of them were supporting the people, were supporting what was happening. That's why they pulled back. They were afraid of that. But let me go to what you asked then. What next? We go ahead and name a team that will work with Raila Odinga. We go ahead with the people's assemblies that we've been doing around the country. We hold a national convention. We force a referendum. So basically what we are doing with the in addition to the resistance activities, is to force usurpers of power to get out of power so that we can have a legitimate process through which we elect our leaders.
Okay, so David Murathe, what is the likelihood of them getting the referendum that they want? Give me a percentage. Is it 0?
0.
Will President Kenyatta, David, okay, so David, will President Kenyatta hold out the olive branch and say, okay, listen, Raila Odinga, you're not just some random rebel, you're a former prime minister, I respect you, come, let's talk. Will he do that?
You do not shake hands with somebody with a clenched fist. They have to open the palm of their hand so that you can shake hands. But the way they're talking, the way they're intimidating people, the way they're behaving, is like they want to take this thing by force. Nobody's going to sit back and watch them take it by force. So chances of a national conversation, yes. Dialogue, we are going to dialogue and have the conversation with the people of Kenya, not with individuals, self-seekers, who are just power hungry. We are going to make sure there is law and order and discipline in this country. And let them dare.
Okay, well, it seems as if we have two very clear representatives of both sides of the aisle. Joseph, unfortunately, I've got to move on, but yes. I thank you both for joining us, Joseph Simekha and David Murathe. Thanks for joining us on the Newsmakers.